Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of The Family Couch. Today I am so excited to have with us as our guest, Suzi Lula. Suzi, thank you so much for being on today.
It's my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. I've been looking so forward to connecting with you, so thank you.
Awesome, I feel the same. So Suzi, can you give us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, so I am a spiritual counselor, and I've been working in private practice for about 18, 19 years now. I am mom to a 14-year-old son, and I am a new author. I just wrote a book called The Motherhood Evolution, and it's all about how thriving mothers raise thriving children.
I love that. I love everything about your presence. I've been following Suzi for a while on social media, and I was like, I have to have her on because here's the deal. Everyone talks about self-care. It's become kind of the buzzword. So can you tell us a little bit about what self-care means to you and how you share that with your clients and the people that you work with?
Yeah, thank you. You know, I agree with you about this word self-care, and really my mission is to redefine the word self-care.
Right.
Because what I found is that it's a very misunderstood concept. It's a very undervalued concept because we think of it in a very surface level, and especially parents, mental health professionals, people in the caring field, the caregivers have this thought that self-care is selfish. And so I'm really here to turn that paradigm upside down on its head. What I've learned in working with parents, with working with individuals all of these years is that when we think it's selfish and we don't take care of ourselves, we don't have the bandwidth to be the parents, to be the professionals that we're seeking to be. And so I had found that I call it almost a spiritual bankruptcy because I feel, and especially as women, as mothers, we are taught, to take care of everyone else first.
Yes.
And that it's so selfish to think of taking care of myself first. So I'm not only here to redefine it because it's not really only manicures and massages. It's really what I'm speaking to is that really deep nourishing of the spirit, that we feel fulfilled, that we have a spiritual practice, a spiritual connection that overflows onto those that we're caring for.
Right. And I love that you mentioned that. I think, again, when we talk about self-care, it has become this idea of just doing selfish tasks. Like, people might say, oh, I don't have time for a manicure. I don't have time to get my hair done. Or I don't have the financial means to do that.
Exactly.
Or, I've heard parents say, having kids is just, there's no time. There's no time. I'm going from here to there, shuffling from this activity to that activity, making sure everyone eats, making sure everyone gets to bed on time. So how do you help parents even conceptualize finding that time?
This is exactly the challenge that everyone comes with. We have X number of hours in a day, and we have more to do than hours to do it in. And so that is accurate. The dishes are still going to need to be done, and the laundry is still going to need to be done. What I find, though, is that when you find activities and a spiritual practice and different practices that truly nourish your spirit, what happens is that it takes you outside of linear time. So what do I mean by that? Let's say you read something inspirational, or you have a particular kind of conversation with your best girlfriend, but it's all about transformation. When you take that maybe 5-10 minutes and you are truly nourishing your spirit and you walk away from it, oh my gosh, that really fed me, then the 5 minutes or the 10 minutes that really did nourish you, then the you that you bring back to the dishes, the you that you bring back to the homework and the taking of the bath and the getting out of the door in the morning, I am a different individual. Literally, the cells of my body are different, and I relate to my son differently, and he likes me better. I like me better.
So, you mentioned this word spiritually a couple of times. So can you talk a little bit about that? Because again, when you're thinking about spiritual, people immediately go to religion, right? They immediately go to like God or this. So can you talk to us about what it means to get spiritually fed through our self-care?
Yes, excellent. And I specifically use that word spiritual because the root of the word spirituality and spirit means breath.
Mm.
The word spirit means breath. So I mean it in a very non-religious way. I mean it that when I think about my breath right now, I become aware that of myself, I am not breathing my own breath. Of myself, I am not beating my own heartbeat. So I must be of something larger and greater. Some other breath, some other life must be gifting me this life. The other reason I specifically use this word spirit is because I find that as parents, whether we actually give birth to our children or we adopt our children or however our children come to us, there is a moment. And it could be when we're watching our child sleep at night. There is some moment that we feel a profound connection to that other being that surpasses and transcends any other relationship. I've never had an individual that takes care of children not have had that experience. And I consider that a spiritual experience, a transcendent experience. And so what I'm seeking to share is that we do get so mired in the doing, like you said, the taking the activities. It's not necessarily that those activities may change. They may change, they may not. But I'm interested, and I know that individuals, the people I work with, are so interested in how can I connect to something that fulfills me, that's something that is greater than the schlepping around to gymnastics, you know? And how can I bring that to the schlepping around to gymnastics? And so it's really about standing in our power. I say that mothers in particular, but parents, caregivers are the untapped spiritual powerhouse of this planet. How can we stand in our value? We stand in our spiritual authority and then bring that to those that we care for. That's why I use the word spirit.
I love that. And I really appreciate that whole explanation, because again, I think when you talk about the spiritual experience, you're right. Every time that we're connecting to somebody, it is a spiritual experience, whether we conceptualize it that way or not, it really does become that. And I would love for you to talk a little bit more to what you said about how do I bring that spiritual experience to schlepping around and doing the laundry? How do you do that?
Yeah, I find that's a wonderful question. And I find that this whole exploration of what in the world is self-care. You'll see in my book, practically every client that I have that I start talking about self-care with always ask the same question: what in the world do you mean by it? And how does it not become just one more thing to put on my to-do list that's already too long, correct? So it is truly an individual exploration of, well, what is it that truly nourishes my spirit? When my son was young, I used to color next to him. And the simple act of me giving myself permission to pull out some colors and color was a way of really connecting me. It could be something as simple as always having fresh flowers in your home. But it's more than these individual practices. It's a way of life. It's learning a way of life. And so and it will I also say that self-care is not for the faint of heart. It will require of us to shift some of our values, to take the time to go cut fresh flowers and have them in our home, to take the time not maybe to be doing 5 activities, but to cut down to be doing 3 activities, to really take the commitment that I am going to rest. You know, I am going to learn to ask for assistance. That learning to ask for assistance is not weak. It is the strongest thing I can do. To ask others, you know, for support. It is going to require of us to grow and to transform, because I can't find these practices that nourish my spirit if I don't ask for some assistance or in some way grow.
Right.
Then when as I do find them, the feeling that I get is a great feeling, like this conversation right now. Yeah. When I leave here, I have to go pick up my son from school. When I leave here, I'm going to meet him with a big smile on my face because I participated in something that fed me.
Right.
So that's what I'm saying. Then I'm going to set the conscious intention when I pick him up and have a big smile on my face because I just got fed right now.
Right.
So it's that practice of learning how to keep our tanks full rather than empty. And it is a practice. It's a daily practice. It takes some time at first.
And I think you really hit on something that resonated for me, which is self-care is not for the faint of heart, right? I love that because you're right. It is a practice. It's not another thing to check off.
Right.
Do list, but it's really about encompassing everything that we do. Really taking it and saying, like, I love what you just said about I decided to be fed before I move into the next phase of my day or before I move into the next activity. And so what I would ask, again, to the parent who's watching, who's feeling like they are just burning, the fire on both ends, how do they learn to say no to things? How do they learn to say, I can't do it all? Because unfortunately, our culture says you have to do it all.
Yes.
They're always they do that, right?
Yes, this is why I say it's not for the faint of heart. I work with so many mothers in particular who are working sometimes 2 jobs. They might be a single mom. So believe me, my husband travels sometimes for weeks at a time. So I understand having too much to do on too small of a plate.
Right.
And the thing about it, the first step is we really need to join together as women, as caretakers, and say this is not selfish. First and foremost, because when we are mired in that paradigm that it's selfish, we're not going to want to take that step to say no to something. We're not going to want to take that step to ask for support. We don't want to be the first person. That's why I say it's not for the faint of heart. It's a courageous act to care for yourself, because no one wants to be the first person that gets looked at with rolled eyes that, oh, isn't she selfish? Look how good she feels. Look how, she's prancing around. No one wants to be that individual. And yet, this is what I have found person to person after person after person, is when you are the first person to say in your circle of friends, I had to cut off one activity in my week. I needed to do it for my sanity. Then 10 other people are going to rush over and go, how did you do that? I want to do that, please. Because when one of us thrives, it's so attractive. It's so compelling. It's like, I want what she has,
Yes. And
it is going to take the first one of you in your circle to say, you know what, I was doing too much.
Yeah.
Instead of taking my son, to a gymnastics class and a karate class, we chose one. And you know what I did instead of karate? I laid down and colored with him. I went into the other room and I relaxed. I learned to meditate. I took a meditation class. Once you do that first thing, I guarantee you, 10 other people are going to say, what are you doing? Because I want some of that,
And I love that idea of, really having that tribe. Now, here's something that, as you were talking, I was thinking about, and I know it's something that I hear from my parents, and I'm sure you do too, which is the way that social media has created so much comparison, which kind of causes us to want to do so much more so we can keep up with all the parents who are taking those pictures and sharing those posts. I want to be like those parents. So how do we manage our self-care when we're constantly being bombarded with this comparison?
Yes. First and foremost, anyone watching this, hearing this, go to your Facebook page, come to my Facebook page, because we need to create communities where we are shifting of the values.
Yes.
So my book, The Motherhood Evolution, we are evolving, what motherhood looks like. We are evolving what parenting looks like. We are evolving what self-care looks like. We are evolving what the culture needs to look like. Our culture, I work with these individuals all day. I know we're unhappy when we're schlepping around to 10 different places. So first and foremost, you want to become part of communities out there where you feel at home, where you are the first person that says, in my, world, I started going to bed at 9 p.m. instead of 11 p.m. And when I got in bed, I did a gratitude practice and I meditated before I fell asleep. And you want other people to be applauding you and acknowledging you and appreciating you. And then I guarantee you, when you have your other posts in your own world, you're going to see you are going to become the leaders. You're going to become the leaders. It's going to take you to do 1 or 2 acts. And when everybody else is posting about how many things they did, You want to start feeling proud of how few things you did.
Yes.
You know,
yes.
it's the quality rather than the quantity, but it is going to be, this is why I'm so passionate, you know, and you and I are speaking the same language.
Right.
We want to initiate a cultural paradigm shift.
Yes.
Because I don't want my son to be brought up in a world where he has to be multitasking to find his value and his worth. And he had to go to an Ivy League school and have a double major and then go to an Ivy League, you know, postgraduate and have 3 different, you know, doctorates hanging on his wall to find his worth and value.
Right.
You know?
And I love that last piece, because I think that's something that, yes, our culture has really started to praise. Like if you are going to, like, you're doing 50 million extracurriculars, we start kids in high school feeling like that, saying you got to do 100 extracurriculars to get into college. And they already start off as kids thinking they've got to do in order to find their worth and find their value. So I love that you mentioned that, because I think it's something that...
And I live in Los Angeles, New York, some of the big cities. I mean, people are looking at preschools.
Yes.
Preschools, thinking about, I mean, we are a culture that little by little has tried to find our identity through these achievements, through our doing. And this work, you know, our children, there's another chapter in my book called What Our Children Really Want, what you really want too. And our children are really starving for the heart-to-heart connection.
Yes.
They're starving for the connection. If we're taking them to school, they want the drive over there to be connected and, you know, and we do too.
Yeah.
We all want the same thing. That's, you know, that's what it is. We want the same thing. I want my drive to and from school to be rich and full and connected and fun and lighthearted. You know, I first wrote my book because my son made a comment to me in the car after school one day. We got in the car and I said, you know, hey, how was school? And I'm just asking him about his day. And his comment to me was, Mom, you really need to smile more. And I said, what? You know, and as I really began to deconstruct his comment, he was right. I had 25 other things I was thinking about and checking off how was your day and when are you going to do your homework or 2 on my checklist. And he called me on it.
Yeah.
And I wanted his childhood and his memories and my memories, quite frankly, to be different. So it put me on a path to really look at my values.
Yeah, definitely. And, you know, one thing that you've mentioned, and I really want to come back to it, which is this idea of having a tribe and really asking for help. As you know, I talk a lot about ending parent shame. And for me, I feel like shame is what causes parents to isolate. They don't want to be talked about. They don't want to be laughed at or pointed and blamed. And so how do you help parents, or what would you say to help parents who are so scared to say, I need help, but they're worried about the shame that might come from them asking for help?
Yes, this is such a great question. I had this myself. I can remember once my son was probably about 6 years old, and my husband travels, as I said, and I was lying in bed sick as a dog. Didn't want to reach out to help for anyone. You know, oh, he's okay. He can just get some, you know, cereal and I did finally start calling a few people. No one was available. I finally called his teacher. And I was mortified, you know, I was desperate and mortified and full of shame and guilt and all the rest of it. And it turned out to be one of the most glorious days of my son's life. He went to the park. And so, again, I think I have so much respect for the journey that it takes someone to break through a belief system, an individual belief system and a cultural belief system that says asking for help is shameful. We should be able to do everything all ourselves. We shouldn't have to ask. And to recognize that not only are you robbing yourself, I would have been robbing my son. I would have been giving him a certain kind of experience that day. Would we have been fine? Yes. But he had an experience where he ended up thriving because I finally broke through my own walls and barriers. So when you ask what to tell an individual, you know, the hard answer is that you have to find the courage to do it one time. And one time you're going to feel better. Someplace inside of you knows that you know that you know that we are not meant to live in this shameful prison. And the key to opening that prison door is to make the phone call or to call someone and tell them how vulnerable making the phone call feels, to call a girlfriend and say, I need help and this is so vulnerable and I feel so shameful. The other individual is going to hear you because we've all experienced, the same thing.
Exactly.
Best phone call you can make. Make it today, someone. Make it today.
I totally echo that. If you're listening to this and you're like, I am too scared, I agree. I totally echo and second everything that Suzi is saying.
Call me, call both of us, email us.
Yeah.
We will give you the push, the courage.
I feel like we should have like a 1-800 number underneath. 1-800-ASK.
1-800-ASK.
And I love that you said this a few times in your explanations with this idea of being courageous and taking that first step. I feel like that's kind of the theme of really finding self-care. It's not trying to do it the way everyone is saying do it. Yes. It's really about saying, I need something, and just taking that first step and saying, I need something. Would you agree with that?
Wholeheartedly, because we have children or we are caregivers because we love children. Mm-hmm. And then the individuals I work with, sometimes it's so disheartening because you have these children, this family, and it can feel so empty and isolating. And this is not what it's meant to be. Yeah. There's a quote that I just love, and it says, the universe has entrusted me with myself. Mm. And I think, how beautiful. I've been entrusted with this lovely child. And when I can find the courage to really treasure my own life, I have so much more to bring to him and for him,
I love that so much. I love that quote so much. That's something that I definitely will share. Thank you for sharing that quote with us.
And the community aspect that you're speaking of, for anyone and everyone watching right now, to know that right now you have a community of 2 more individuals than you had 30 minutes ago.
Right.
Lean into us, because as everyone decides, yes, let's not be a follower of culture anymore, because culture in and of itself is empty. And this is what I work with individuals all day. They follow the dots that we've been taught you're supposed to follow, and we end up empty. So lean into us and these communities that are forming, and just find the momentum that you're going to find when you start sharing, and share your challenges. Yes. Come to our Facebook pages and share your challenges, and you will be just amazed at the support that will rush to you. You know?
Yes, I completely agree with that. Totally agree that finding your tribe, and as you said, just being the first sometimes of your own tribe can really help just kind of springboard you into another existence, another level of like self-care, like you shared.
Yes.
So I know, Suzi, that we could talk about this forever, but I definitely want to give you a chance to share a little bit more about how our listeners and our audience can get in contact with you and learn more about your services and what you do.
Thank you. So the easiest way is to go to SuziLula.com, easy to spell, SuziLula.com. As I said, I'm a new author. I don't know if this comes up backwards. Sometimes it does. But the book, The Motherhood Evolution, and if you haven't seen it, read it, or heard of it, you can go to my website and download for free the first chapter, which is called From Self-Sacrifice to Self-Care. So exactly what we've been speaking about. And then on Mondays, every Monday morning at 10 Pacific time, I do a Facebook Live. Right now, we're going through the different chapters of the book, but we talk about all things parenting, all things self-care, all things thriving, and lots of comments and, good community. So those are my ongoing things, and I'd love to connect with anyone and everyone watching.
Nice. So for those of you who were listening, if you didn't have a chance to jot that down, don't fret, because we'll have all those links in the show notes. So you can go ahead and click the different links that call out to you and connect with Suzi in a way that feels resonant for you. Thank you so much, Suzi, for being a part of the Family Couch today.
Oh my gosh, and thank you so much for having me, and thank you for being the first one to start a show, The Family Couch. I will be tuning in all the time. I think it's a brilliant idea and much needed, and any way I can support you, I'm yours.
Thank you so much. Bye, Suzi.
Bye-bye.